So we can have patients who are suffering from polymyalgias and they're also exhibiting the dermatological manifestations. Now, such patients are classified under the category of dermatomyositis. So how do you basically define this condition of dermatomyositis? Dermatomyositis is basically an idiopathic inflammatory myopathy with characteristic cutaneous findings that occur in children, and it can even occur in adults. So here we are dealing with an inflammatory condition which can affect the children equally as it can affect the adults. The underlying pathogenesis is usually idiopathic. It's inflammatory in nature, obviously, but what are the triggering factors? That is quite debatable in the individuals. And it's usually the genetics that play a major role in the development of dermatomyositis in the individual. And obviously, the environmental stressful conditions can basically precipitate the condition of dermatomyositis. So this is a simplified definition of dermatomyositis, and this is basically going to be very helpful when you're diagnosing that a particular patient is suffering from the condition of dermatomyositis. So the ecological factors or the underlying factors that can contribute towards the development of dermatomyositis can be the infectious states. It can be any stressful infections that the patient had, and usually it can range from bacterial, viral, fungal infections, mycoplasmic infections that are occurring in the individual. That is basically responsible for the development of dermatomyositis. Helminthic infections are very notorious for the development of this dermatomyositis in the individuals. So usually the patient would start complaining of polymyalgias, and then the patient would have the dermatological manifestations accordingly, differing, and basically they are quite differing from case to case when we look at these patients. Then there are a lot of environmental factors. It can be the toxins in the environment. So it's again very important that you relate to the history as well. You have to ask for the occupational history. That is going to highlight a lot of factors. What can be the triggering factors in the environment that are leading to the development of this dermatomyositis? It can be the extreme weather conditions. It can be the extreme dry weather conditions that are basically making the patient more prone to the development of dermatomyositis. It can be the pollutants in the environment that are contributing to the development of this condition. So the environmental conditions, and specifically the exposure to the sun, the UV radiations, they really start off with this cascade of events. So the exposure to the sun, it can be either the occupation itself, which is rendering the patient more prone to the development of this condition. The stressful environmental conditions can be basically one of the precipitating factors that you have to keep in mind. All of these points can be basically asked for when you're taking the history in detail from the patient. Then obviously the genetic factors. So the genes play a very important role, and alterations at the genetic makeup, at the level of the genetic makeup. And then obviously coupling up this genetic makeup with the stressful environmental conditions, with the development of infections in an individual, that is going to result in the development of this condition. A lot of individuals are basically allergic to different groups of drugs. It can be the fluoroquinolones, it can be a lot of anti-malarial drugs, it can be the antiviral medications that the patient may be put forth. So you have to ask whether there is some sort of a medication that the patient started off in the recent past that he went allergic to, and that resulted in the particular cascade of events of the release of the cytokines and the inflammatory process in the individual. So you basically relate to these minor facts in the history, and only then you can basically sort out what are the ecological factors that contributed to the development of this condition in the patient. Now we have the diagnostic factors that we have to look for in cases of dermatomyositis. So again, there is a symmetrical involvement of the proximal muscles. Both sides are involved, and that is suggestive of the fact that it's not spinal cord or it's not the higher brain centers that are involved in the muscular weakness. Usually when we talk about the muscular weakness, we have this thing in our mind that muscular weakness is usually associated with the higher brain centers, or either it is associated with the damage to the spinal cord. So it's again very important to rule out this fact. When we have a symmetrical involvement, it's usually the muscles itself that are contributing to that muscle weakness. So it's again a very important sign over here. The elevated serum muscle enzymes level, for instance, the CK, CKMB, the ALT, ASTs are again evaluated for, and their elevations are again suggestive of the fact that there is some sort of a muscular damage, either skeletal, cardiac, or it can be the smooth muscles that are affected in that particular individual. We have the myopathic changes on the EMGs, and then obviously we also confer to the muscle biopsies, which again are suggestive of the fact that there is some sort of a muscle damage that occurred due to the release of certain enzymes that basically resulted in the necrosis of the muscles. Again, a dermatological rash is very suggestive of the fact that the patient is suffering from the variety of dermatomyositis. So usually, as I've already explained, the fact that it can be even an overlapping picture. But again, if there is the cutaneous manifestations, it's basically more suggestive of the fact that the patient is suffering from this variety of dermatomyositis rather than polymyositis. Now, what are the muscle biopsies suggestive of? When we look at the muscles, there is always a perivascular inflammatory response that is noted down. As you can even see, the inflammatory response is seen over here. So the perivascular inflammation is very suggestive of the fact. So there is an inflammatory response that is seen, and it's again the perivascular region that is affected more. Now, what is the significance of this perivascular region that is affected? The development of the inflammatory response, the release of the cytokines in the perivascular region. It is going to basically relate to the endovesicular damage that takes place. Basically, the blood supply of the particular muscle is affected, and that is resulting in the muscular atrophy. And obviously, that is going to end up in the muscular weakness in the individual. So this is the underlying pathogenesis that we can see when we take out these biopsies and we send them to the histopathologist for the further review. We're going to end up basically concluding that this inflammatory response is seen in the muscles, which is quite suggestive of the dermatomyositis in the individual. Now, it's not only the muscles, it's not only the skeletal muscles that are affected. A lot of other organs are also affected in cases of dermatomyositis, ranging from we have the esophageal muscles. Now, when we have the smooth muscles of the gut, the GI tract that are affected, that is going to result in the dysphagia, that is the difficulty in swallowing. So a lot of patients can even give you the set of signs and symptoms which are suggestive of dysphagia rather than the typical sign and symptoms of a polymyalgic conditions affecting the upper and the lower limbs. And then we have the lungs that can be affected, the respiratory muscles can be affected, and that is going to result in a dyspneic condition, that is the difficulty in breathing. Depending upon the set of signs and symptoms and the individual patient, we are going to treat the patient accordingly. It can be, first of all, obviously the symptomatic treatment. The dysphagia has the particular kind of a management. For instance, the diet changes. Obviously, we don't want to have the history of weight loss as we were going through the signs and symptoms, and we said that there can be a history of significant weight loss. When we dig out, we usually come up with the fact that the patient was suffering from dysphagia, and that basically resulted in a decrease in the overall diet and resulted in basically an overall weight loss in the individual. So whatever the sign and symptoms we are dealing in with, we're going to manage the patient or the case accordingly and give out the symptomatic treatment as well. Joints are also affected in a lot of cases. It's usually the case, and whenever there is an underlying pathology of autoimmunity, usually, for instance, the RA or the SLEs, they are more suggestive of a joint complaint, or it can be suggestive of a wrist joint is usually affected, or it can be even the ankle joint or the knee joint that is affected in a lot of cases. Cardiac muscles are even affected, and that usually result in tachypneas and alterations in the ECGs when they are carried out. Again, when we look at the histological features, then they are suggestive of the fact that there is an inflammatory response. Even in the smooth muscles, this inflammatory response can occur in the skeletal muscles as well. So it's depending upon the site of the biopsy that we are taking, and obviously the presenting complaint of the patient as well. Now, having done with the initial investigations, and when you take out the points in the history and you're suspecting that this patient is might be suffering from dermatomyositis, there are certain clinical features that you have to focus on when you are clinically examining the patient. First of all, the presenting complaints, the symptoms that the patient come up to you with, they are usually the muscle weakness. Summarizing them would be basically more helpful to you. So usually it can be an ache, that is the muscular ache. The joints can be involved, the muscles can be involved as well. It is going to be a symmetrical involvement of the muscles or either the joints. And usually the patients, when you examine them, they have hardened bumps of calcium deposits as well under the skin. And then we have the features of dysphagia. Trouble with swallowing are usually the features, the presenting complaints of the individual, which obviously when you write down in your history, you're going to say that the patient is suffering from dysphagia. And obviously it is going to take place whenever the smooth muscles of the esophagus are going to be affected. Then moving on, the typical clinical features on the basis of which we are suggesting that this patient is suffering from dermatomyositis, or we are labeling the patient as a patient of dermatomyositis. There are these typical skin findings, the cutaneous findings. First of all, we have the Gottron signs. So basically on the dorsum of the hands and the feet, the patient has these raised papules. These raised papules are basically, as you can even see over here on the knuckles, there are these reddish raised papules that are known as the Gottron's sign in the individuals who are suffering from dermatomyositis. So again, they are basically a result or the necrotic processes that are taking place, and due to that particular phenomena, this development of a particular rash-like phenomena or the raised macules or papules, the appearance of these, they take place, and this is very suggestive of dermatomyositis in the individuals. Then the heliotrope rash. This is again the soft tissues of the periorbital areas are usually affected. It can be the upper lid or it can be the lower lid that is affected. There are signs of inflammation, redness, rubor, calor. All of these signs are present, and there is basically profused swelling at this particular area. And you have to basically treat these patients accordingly, because this is because this is again a condition that is deteriorating with the passage of time. So you have to be very vigilant and start off with the treatment accordingly in this case. Then we have the Shaw sign and the V sign, which is usually present on the anterior region of the neck. And this V region, this is basically a superior region to the manubrium sterni. And this V-like, it's usually in a V shape, and that's why it's known as a V sign, or it's labeled as a Shaw sign in the individuals. Then we have the mechanic's hands, and there is basically a phenomena of blackening or dirty appearance on the palmar aspects of the hands. And it is again very suggestive of the dermatomyositis in the individuals, because obviously it's not going to be the cutaneous manifestations alone. These cutaneous manifestations are going to be coupled up with the polymyalgias, with the overall weakness, with the overall fatigue syndrome, as well as features of involvement of smooth muscles as well in the individual. And then, of course, we have the psoriasiform changes in the scalp as well. It can be even at the dorsum of the hands and the feet. Psoriasiform or psoriasis is basically the scaliness, the scaly appearance on the stratum corneum of the skin. So it's usually the appearance of the scales that is present, and there is an exfoliation of the stratum corneum that is resulting in that flaky or the dandruff-like appearance on the dorsum of the hand, and even the scalp is usually involved in the formation of that psoriatic form changes. So basically, the overall history, and you have to evaluate that what are the typical kind of dermatological manifestations that are basically coupling up with the features of myositis in the individual. And then only you can move on with a definitive diagnosis in this particular case. Now, usually when we have these cases of dermatomyositis, there is again a very important association, not only with the underlying autoimmune disorders, not only with the underlying infectious states in the individuals. There are a lot of researches that are being carried out and that are suggestive of the fact that a lot of cancerous conditions are usually associated with the development of dermatomyositis in the individuals. So the different cancerous conditions that are usually associated with them are the lymphomas. Then we have the breast carcinomas that are even associated with the development of dermatomyositis. A lot of patients with the history of lung cancers or who are even being diagnosed with lung cancers have a coupled up diagnosis with the dermatomyositis. Ovarian cancers is another kind of tumorous conditions that are associated with dermatomyositis. And then finally, we have the colonic cancers that can be associated with the development of this dermatomyositis, the features of myalgias, the features of cutaneous rashes and manifestations are present along with all of these cancerous conditions. So having overviewed this condition of dermatomyositis, we have come up to a point of inference that we have to take the history in quite a detail over here, just to see what can be the underlying factors. And we have to even keep in mind it's just not the dermatomyositis that we're dealing with. It can be a much horrendous condition. For instance, it can be a carcinomatous condition, an underlying carcinoma can be even present. So a very thorough investigation has to be carried out whenever patients present to you and you're suspecting that it is a case of dermatomyositis, and you have to rule out the cancerous conditions as well in this particular case. And then obviously, once you have done a thorough investigations and have carried out the labs in quite a detail, have carried out the CT scans and the MRIs and all of the baseline investigations, then only you can sort out a complete and a comprehensive management plan for these patients of dermatomyositis.